Welcome to the Fredonia Central School Board of Education meeting for Thursday, October 10th, 2017. We start every meeting with a pledge
of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That the board received a letter from some concerned parents about the middle school schedule and some changes in the middle school. And then, as I do, when I get the opportunity, I looked at the backup documents, and I didn't see the letter in the backup documents, and I didn't know if that was an oversight, or I was trying to do it on my phone real quickly in between parent-teacher conferences. But I didn't know if that was supposed to be in the backup documents, or if it was requested to be in the backup documents. But irregardless of that, I'm wondering if maybe the letter had concerns that I voiced back in March when the first proposed changes to the middle school schedule were laid out for the public. And I emailed the board, and I could resend you a copy of the email. But in the email that I sent to the board, I had some concerns expressed about a 2-minute passing period, which I didn't think was long enough for students. And I had some concerns expressed about tracking in the middle school, that the creation of some of the sections was basically tracking, which has no place in middle school. And I know a little bit about middle school. I've only been doing it for about 36 years, but wondering if we'll get a chance to see what was in that letter. Maybe I was hoping maybe some of the parents that are here were here for that reason. They were going to speak to it. The other thing I wanted to ask about, that I've been asking about for a number of months now, is the Wall of Honor. We've got a couple of people recently deceased, one not so recently, that I've asked about how we go about getting those two gentlemen on the Wall of Honor. Thomas Parisi, distinguished principal, Fredonia Elementary School, World War II veteran, great guy. Lenny Venno just passed away. I asked about how we could get Lenny on the Wall of Honor. I think they both deserve to be on the Wall of Honor. I don't know what the holdup is when you already have two gentlemen on the Wall of Honor, so you must know why they're up there. So I would think you could figure out why Lenny and Tom aren't getting.
It's not a give and take at a school board meeting. You're welcome to visit me in my office, and you and I can have a chat about what we're talking about, what's being presented. Okay.
I apologize.
Do you know where my office is?
Yeah. Is there anyone else?
One last thing, then I have to get back to my parent-teacher conferences, which maybe the board meeting could have been scheduled on a night when there weren't parent-teacher conferences. But students can be challenged and have a wonderful experience without tracking. And Daniel's question could have been answered if the letter had been put in the backup of the board meeting. Have a good night.
Thank you. To address the general concerns here, first of all, the letter that was written to the board, it is not the policy of the board to read letters that are sent to the board at a meeting. It is the policy of the board to accept people presenting to the board, as in tonight. And if anyone would like to read that letter, we are more than welcome to have them read that letter. If they want to write to the board, that's fine. We acknowledge it. We have, and first of all, I would also like to say I appreciate everyone's involvement. I think that this is great that people are coming and very taking an active role in their kids' education. I think that that's one of the major reasons why students succeed is parents' involvement. These are issues that were brought to the board through this letter, and we have asked Mr. Certisio to look into this further. Unfortunately, we do have parent-teacher conference tonight, so we're not able to address it tonight because our principals are tied up. However, we are going to have a presentation from the middle school at the next board meeting on the 22nd to address some of these concerns, to address I'm gonna say all the concerns, hopefully.
That's the goal. That's the goal.
Your concerns and your comments are not taken lightly. We are addressing them, and we will have a more formal reply to your concerns and questions at the next board meeting. We would have liked to have done it tonight, but it just wasn't possible because of scheduling. We've provided 2 opportunities for people to address the board. The first one is on things that are associated with the agenda. And because this letter was included in the agenda as a letter to the board, that letter could have been read at the beginning of this meeting. There's also an opportunity at the end of the meeting where any item can be brought to the board's attention. And at that time, the letter could be read again. So we're not opposed to the letter being written or read here at the board meeting. But it's just the board's policy that we not read a letter from the public. Okay? Okay, we'll keep going here.
Well,
Yes.
my name is Daniel Parker, 9380 Fredonia Stockton Road. I sort of waited because this isn't easy for me. I'm one of the social economical low-income kids from Westfield. I'm a foster kid. I was labeled all my life through school as probably one of the slower kids. But because we weren't segregated academically, some of my best friends were the honor roll kids. The kids that I played football with, the kids that I wrestled with, the kids that I ran track with. They seemed to be the more academically achieving individuals. And that's where my forte was, athletics. Because I was exposed to them on a daily basis in the classroom, I set my goals for myself here. Even though my guidance counselor thought I should go into construction like my dad did, and maybe go in the military and not go to college. Because, you know, you're a Parker from Westfield. So being exposed to someone who gets 90s when you get 70s helped me set my goals higher. I never would have gone to college. I'm the first of 11 uncles and aunts whose children didn't go to college. So I have about 30 cousins. And I'm the first one to graduate from Fredonia State or any university. And I contribute that to being exposed to the honor roll students and maybe some other less fortunate kids that decided to take other paths like I was supposed to take, but decided not to take. So it really was disheartening to me to hear that the middle school was going to start tracking students and segregating, separating, tracking, however you want to use these terms, because I know where I would have been placed, and I wouldn't have had the mentors in my classroom to try to succeed, to be like them. So I want you to consider that as a person who lived it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another in the back. Yes.
I
Yep.
just had a point of clarification on reading the letter today. I know that the letter, reading it in its entirety will extend beyond the 5 minutes. Will that be granted by the board?
I think that there was a shorter version.
I'm asking if we chose to read the extended version, if that would be granted by the board?
I would allow the shorter version to be within the 5 minutes, because I believe that the shorter version contained all of the issues.
It was a summary.
Yeah.
What if,
Yes.
what if several people each took their 5 minutes reading parts of the letter? If each person gets 5 minutes.
It's per individual group, so it's, again, we can go on record with that, with the summary, and it would contain all of the issues.
Each group gets 5 minutes, or each person gets 5 minutes?
It says, per individual or group, yes.
gonna say one last thing, and I really have to go. I'm sorry if that frustrates you. I sent you, the board, an email about this topic in March. I have nothing to do with this letter. I sent you an email that said I had concerns that you were creating tracking in the middle school. No one addressed my concerns, Mr. Aldrich. Address theirs. Let them read their letter.
Would you like to read that now or at the end?
Can do it now. When I practiced this was about 5.5 minutes. If you'll allow the extension, I would appreciate it. Again, I'm Scott Ferguson from 25 Leverett Street, and I'm speaking on behalf of the group that has written this letter to the middle school and administration. So we are writing to express concern and request a response and action related to the significant changes in academic scheduling at Fredonia Middle School. It's come to our attention that the 7th, 8th, and 8th grades have been scheduled according to homogeneous tracks across core academic subjects, math, science, social studies, and English. In essence, students in these grades and their parents began the school year realizing they were ranked and tracked together according to perceptions of their ability level. We strongly oppose the unilateral tracking across academic disciplines, and we write in order to share our concerns about the system, objections about how it was rolled out this year, and finally request a response and action from the school district. In the summer preceding the school year, the parents received a letter outlining changes that were taking place at Fredonia Middle School. But the most significant and impactful changes were omitted. That our students would be placed in classes based on a stratified tracking system across all core academic subjects. After multiple separate conversations that many of us had with Principal Troutman, to understand this change, we have learned that math performance is used as the predominant criterion for placing students in various tracks, along with grades and teacher recommendations, and that students are ranked and scheduled together across the board of core subjects. This amounts to ability tracking, an educational practice by which students are sorted according to perceived academic ability for the purpose of providing academically homogeneous instruction tailored to their perceived level. The approach of ability tracking has long been discredited for being ineffective for learning at all of the perceived levels of learners, so the high, middle, and low, as well as unethical for multiple reasons. Simply put, it's outdated and wrong. Even though ability tracking has been the subject of extensive criticism for the past few decades, there are some that may say it benefits learners because it allows teachers to tailor their teaching to an entire level of students at a time. The evidence-based research simply does not support this assumption, and the risks of the system far outweigh the prospective benefits. Even the most cursory review of the literature quickly reveals the controversies around ability tracking. The National Education Association supports the elimination of ability tracking due to the well-known negative impacts on students with low income and students of color. The 2019 National Association of Secondary School Principals Guiding Principles for Middle Level and High School states the NASSP believes that while tracking was originally intended for practical pedagogical purposes, the unintended consequences make it an obsolete practice in the context of high expectations for all, which I think we can agree we should have for all of our students. In Breaking Ranks in the Middle, Strategies for Leading Middle-Level Reform from 2006, the NASSP argues that improving schools involves finding alternatives to tracking by eliminating low-level courses and opening challenging upper-level courses to all students. Janine Oakes published her seminal work in the field of education as early as 1985. It was quite a while ago. In her Keeping Track, How Schools Structure Inequity, she decries tracking as a system that by its very nature perpetuates structural racism and classism. Her findings have been supported by a myriad of studies conducted in the decades to follow. Tracking systems have received broad criticism for labeling students as intellectually gifted, advanced, or smart. But by implication, there's also students labeled as not gifted, not advanced, and not smart. Rather than improving underachieving students' self-perceptions, as some would argue, research demonstrates that tracking fosters lower self-esteem and academic motivation because the students placed in lower tracks are stereotyped as dumb. Even more concerning, low-track students are more likely to engage in antisocial behavior, drop out of school, and be pushed into the criminal justice system because they come to realize the rewards of education, such as access to college and high-paying jobs, are not available to them.
Several of us have spoken at length to the administrative staff at Fredonia Middle School to try to understand the change, and we have been repeatedly told that this approach is meant to facilitate the scheduling process. In actuality, while it may have been made scheduling easier in the outset, it made the course schedule so rigid that changes to a student's schedule are impractical or impossible. Also, we find it unacceptable to hear that ease of scheduling should ever take priority over creating the most effective learning environment for our students. We respectfully request a public response and clear plan of action from the school district specifically addressing these following 6 points. Assessment and reevaluation of the ability tracking system in the current academic year. Ideally, we would like to see the tracks integrated and advanced curriculum de-differentiated. We'd like to see bias assessment and training, analysis of racial and economic makeup of the current ability tracks, enhanced schedule flexibility to allow students to change a group if they feel that their abilities require it. Improved communication with the parents, which I think a lot of this is born out of. Nobody knew about this tracking system at the beginning of the school year. And more transparency around any such curricular changes. The undersigned are all current Fredonia Central School parents, most of these parents that you see here. And our children represent the learners identified in the current academic program. We are optimistic that these issues can be addressed and resolved at the local level, just within our school district. But we feel strongly enough about this and will address our concerns at the state level if necessary. In our separate conversations with Principal Troutman with our questions and concerns, we appreciated hearing her willingness to assess this approach and make changes. And we look forward to an initial response in the near future, ideally before the end of the first marking period, to hear back. And we also hope to see a plan in place by December, especially so that changes can be implemented by the start of the third marking period. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, I also had something that I wanted to comment on. Thank you for your time. To begin, I'd like to take the time to comment on the many positive evidence-based practices that the school is currently undertaking in its very ambitious agenda for innovating the curriculum. I'm a professional in the field of educational development and training, and I've been doing exploration on the body of work surrounding this year's curricular initiatives. And while I'm not familiar with Susan Hentz or her work at Fredonia as a training consultant in the last year, in an effort to learn more, I've explored the resources on our company's website, and I've learned that co-teaching and creating inclusive classrooms are two prominent areas of expertise in our repertoire. Both of these teaching and learning components support key foundations of an MTSS structure. In a true MTSS structure, all students are learning together, and I emphasize together in a diverse, mixed ability classroom environment across the entire general education curriculum. I'm heartened to think that our teachers are provided with development on these types of topics. I also like to see that interdisciplinary learning and service learning, both high-impact practices that I value as a parent and educator, are being infused into the curriculum. I also think that providing students with access to technology and information management tools will prepare them with valuable digital and information literacy skills that are required for civic participation, such as this. These are all good things, and there are many good ideas and best practices outlined in the list of initiatives shared with the parents this year. But to provide you with the perspective of an outsider who's not involved in the day-to-day operations of the school, there appear to be competing priorities in the rollout and implementation of this broad swath of initiatives, which appear to be leading to a lot of the systemic problems that we're seeing, in particular with the student schedules and the abilities tracking. And it's, quite frankly, started the year off on a note of contention and an adversarial feeling. And it's really given me pause to wonder about the pace of that change has occurred at in the school. And I'm wondering, are the stakeholders in the school community truly on the same page in regards to the educational identity and values of the school? Are we even reading from the same book? To provide some background on myself, I'm the parent of a middle school child. I'm white, I'm straight, I'm an able-bodied woman with advanced education who has attained middle-class status. I'm a native English speaker, and I also speak the language of education. I recognize my privilege. Through my education, I was always in the smart group, and I knew it, and I reaped the benefits from it. And as an adult, I've had to unlearn some of the ugly, biased assumptions that I internalized regarding ability, aptitude, and potential. In examining my own beliefs, I don't always like what I see, and I often reflect on what I'm modeling for my own children in regards to their attitudes towards learning and ability. In light of the current middle school changes, I would ask others in attendance today to reflect on their own privilege or lack thereof in regards to education. I would ask you to reflect on the values and attitudes being modeled for our children. What messages are they internalizing? What will they need to unlearn as adults? I ask the school leadership to take this opportunity to model growth mindset for these young learners and to show them that it's okay to try something new, to learn from failures, and to build something better. If the goal is truly to create an inclusive school and community that values, cultivates, and celebrates the unique strengths of all of our children and high standards for all, it's time to address the flaws in the current implementation of the curricular changes and the metrics upon which it's based. Thank you.
Would you mind giving your name?
Dawn Eckenroad, 54th Place.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to close the section of hearing from the public. The next item of business is looking at the agenda. We have a proposed agenda that includes the consent agenda, the adoption of the consent agenda upon a motion and a second and affirmative vote by members present approves each and every item so designated. However, prior to the adoption of the consent agenda, any board member may remove capital project reflecting labor, equipment, and materials for the high school office duct revisions, with an increase in the contract sum of $4,735.59. Is there any, if you want to go over this?
I can go over each change order and,
Okay.
Well, I guess my question pertains more to, and most of these change orders, has there been any question to the architects as to why this isn't under their errors and omissions?
There's been many questions to the architects on that topic area. And this particular first change order for $4,735, when the laborers got into the ceiling, they realized that the plans for the ductwork would not, they could not accommodate the plans, and the placement of the rooftop unit had to be changed, and thus the change order. So have I had discussions with the architect about their errors on a regular basis, Mr. President?
And what has been achieved at this point?
I can't say much has been achieved at that point. Our discussion, and this, you may recall the discussion we had about the softball scoreboard, is that there's a significant amount of money still owed to the architects, and we've agreed to have a lengthy discussion about their errors in terms of change orders versus what they're owed, towards the end of this project.
Only because we were part of a group that had been with them from the beginning, yourself not included in that group. And this was one of the things that we were promised by them as architects, that they were going to go through the building and they were going to make sure that things like this didn't occur, more so that there was proper bidding.
Mm-hmm.
And to this point, we've got 6 change orders here that seem rather basic to installation, and found out by the mechanics, not necessarily our architects, as to a need. So I know the work has been done. I understand that these people need to get paid. I'm more concerned about making the whole board and the public understand, as to what we've been getting from our architects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the first 2 change orders you see listed here really go to your point, to areas that we should have had better information at the get-go. Architects are paid to design a project. You expect that they're looking in ceilings and behind walls so that they can make proper drawings, so that the folks who are doing the work know what they're doing when they come in, and thus we don't have a change order. The second change order that I know is not on the table yet, but if I may, as in regards to, the installation of the new gym curtain, that you're aware that I stopped the installation because it was not as was discussed. It did cost us a little bit more money to do it right. We were told from the get-go that what we asked for was not a viable option until we had our construction management group and our actual construction workers here, and they rendered a different opinion, and thus we were able to do what needed to be done. There are parts of these change orders that we own, you know, painting the gym wall is something that probably should have been presented to us, but, you know, in retrospect, we should have thought about that as well. There's change orders regarding the transaction windows that, quite frankly, that's a design issue, and it was also a demand issue from the district, particularly me, and wanting the best possible product for not only our clerical staff who work at that window, but also in terms of interaction with our public. And I want it to be as a friendly and appropriate transaction window as possible, and thus we had to make some significant adjustments. I will say that I thought I articulated what our expectation was. We've had those conversations in facility committee meetings. Mr. Forbes has attended all the meetings, as have I, with the architects and our construction management group. And for some reason, some things got lost in translation in some of those areas. When you look at the change orders on the next page that have to do with the catch basins in the roadway, there are about a dozen catch basins that needed to be repaired at just over $1,000 a pop. It's pretty fair. And then the second piece, in terms of the Lakeview Road and the elementary undercuts, we know from our previous experience that we had some soft spots that need to be corrected. Perhaps with more complete geotesting, we would have known that beforehand. But I do want to remind you that our site work base bids came in in a very good manner for us. We had maximized about $3 million in site work, and we came in at 1.7 or so, 1.8, somewhere in that area. So we did have some funds set aside to absorb some of those changes.
So much of what you're saying is what we've heard at facilities meetings. To the point, individually, there's a lot of things that are on here, as you said earlier, that pretty much seem like omissions and errors to the point where they just didn't do their work. And we were promised that. And I think John can speak for that because he's been at all the meetings. And so, to that, you know, I just don't know as if we had a real good competitive bid because we were using contractors. Not to say anything against anybody, but it just wasn't put out there for competitive bid. It was done at rate.
So you're right that our contractors bid based on what was presented to them and based on what I presented and what you shared. There were some things that they were not aware of that they should have.
Yeah, which, I mean, you always run into unforeseen, and we've ran into a few of those that we've passed previously. Much to the point that you're saying on the next page here, with materials to true and level Lakeview Road. You know, I've got pictures here that I took while they did was mill it and pave it. I don't know what they trued up.
There were,
And,
I'm sorry.
you know, to that point, there's really no breakdown that we've seen. And I don't ever remember this at the facilities meeting being a specific point.
Now, when I looked into that particular change order deeper as well today, and I was reminded that I was provided pictures. I do not have them with me. I can ask them to be resent. That there were certain areas of that roadway and in that parking lot where it had been paved and been paved again, so the thickness was much greater than they expected. That's where my comments about the bore testing were really reflective of that. And we experienced that in a couple of different areas on our campus.
Well, I mean, this is pretty specific to a point, true to level Lakeview Road. So I would assume where it was abutting Lakeview, our roadway.
You're correct.
So Mr. Hawk, can I interrupt you for just, can I ask you if we ought to table this and have Brian Trapp come in.
I think Brian
And
Trapp
address-
should be a
and
part of
address the board.
BCCS.
So that he can address each one of these change orders what we're considering should have been on his air and emissions.
Jeff, what do you think of it?
I think you're punishing the wrong crew here, and the money in these change orders is owed to the people that have done the work. It's owed to our
Can we wait 2
contractors.
weeks?
A lot of these change, and you're asking for my opinion, I'm presenting it, okay? A lot of the change orders that are presented today, the work has been done for a long period of time.
The funny thing about this, and I just want to make a side note, this work has all been done for a long time. This is just basically something we're doing. I don't know a way to put it politely, but it's just something we're going through, because they were passed and approved a long time ago by the district administration.
With the support of the facilities committee, though. I mean, we talked about
Well,
all of these things in facilities, Mr. Roth.
Much to the point of what Brian's saying is he's bringing in the architects to question them as to seeing what they feel they're responsible for.
Which is fine. I mean, I think Mr. Sortisio said that we still owe them money, and so
The
if
contractors,
we're,
yeah, absolutely.
no,
We owe
the
the
architect,
architects money, yeah.
and if it sounds like the architect needs to be held responsible perhaps for some of these issues, then
I mean,
they're
there's
the
a lot of
ones
other issues
that
that
we
aren't
need
even
to
on
not
the table here
pay,
that
not
we've
the,
discussed.
not the contractors.
Right, so I guess the question is, if we are approving this to pay for the people that have done the work, does that eliminate our leverage with the architects to say that we don't agree that they're change orders? So is it the language of saying we're approving this as a change order, we're admitting that it was a change, and we want to maintain some leverage with the architect?
And we put the blame on the architect for them not getting paid.
Okay, we're walking down a slippery legal slope here. Our leverage with the architects is what we owe them. Okay? We could have, and we'll use the high school office for an example, we could have held on that change order, which would have held the completion of the office, but we also had school to start, and we had school to open. And so decisions didn't need to be made. There was no question that had to happen. And we couldn't have operated that office without making those changes.
I'm not suggesting that we not pay the contractors, I'm just saying, you know, is it a semantics here, that how do we pay the contractors for the work that was completed and still be able to hold the architects responsible? So can we do both of those things?
I believe we can.
Okay.
I believe we can. And I think I think this discussion is very healthy. I think it's a discussion that I can bring back to the architects and let them understand the frustration that the board has. They know the frustration that I have as and the facilities committee has. The board needs to vote on this. It is your purview to approve these payments or not. My advice to you is we pay the people who've done the work. I don't have any issue with any of the folks that have done this work here. You know, the Jim Curtin and all of that work has been fantastic. The high school office is working quite well, and I can go on and on with that. The issue is with, on the design side of things, and, you know, the drawings and looking behind the walls and the ceiling. That's where the real issues are.
One further question, the guardrail between the building over here behind the police barracks, was that a change order, and is that part of anything that is on these 6?
It's not on these 6, and that was a change order. That was, again, I would include that in something that should have been in a base bid that was overlooked, and the guardrail was rusted and bent. The pilings that were holding up were rotten. It was a decision of, do we put a brand new parking lot, a brand new roadway, in and leave that?
Well, my question is why did we put up something to hold a tractor trailer from going over a cliff? When all we were trying to do was create a picket fence effect of keeping people from passing from the police barracks into our school. But much to that point, it's an area that we may want access to quickly. We know they had wood posts for those others for security reasons or emergency reasons. Now we've got this pretty stout structure there. And I just wonder, because I don't ever remember it being brought to the facilities committee, options.
Options were discussed, but I believe you're right that they were not discussed with the facilities committee. I had asked, for options like hardscape, boulders, limestone, that type of thing. Our architects really struggled with what I was even talking about. I thought there could be a better option. And we also talked about the parking lot adjacent to AutoZone in the same manner. We are now talking with, our construction management group about using some hardscape, at the end of the new asphalt pathway by the tennis courts to deter vehicles from driving on that asphalt. So looking at some large type landscape rocks that would look decorative, but also, you're not gonna drive your car through them. That was an option that I discussed with them that, they didn't feel that it was viable. So ultimately, it came to, replace what we had.
Well, and much to the point that you brought up on AutoZone, they removed the curbing, which was another error, because we had beautiful granite curbing all along there, and the architects, through their design, removed it all and didn't replace any of it.
You're correct, and that's an area that when the work started and I asked what happened to the curbing, he said, what was in the drawing? And I was very frustrated with that. I've looked at a fair amount of drawings, but I'm certainly no expert in that area. So, I certainly apologize to the board that happened. There were other areas that we've really caught, and we have some examples that we've already talked about. So there, as you said earlier, there's a whole litany of things that, we have a great project. I don't want anyone in this room to think that we're not very happy with what the end result is coming to be. But getting there has been really difficult, and more difficult than it should have been, in a lot of ways. I think our parking lots and our roadways and our new entryways, once they're done, and you're gonna hear more about that in a few minutes, are really outstanding. I think we've created some great spaces in our buildings, and we're gonna continue doing that. But again, it's been difficult at times because of the work of that group. And you'll hear it again when I present my goals. There's significant reasons why we're looking elsewhere.
So what is your recommendation? Sorry.
My recommendation is we approve these change orders, and that we, if we're gonna withhold anything, it's the payment to the architects, until we get some satisfaction about some of these areas that they should have handled better.
And the architects are owed beyond what we owe in change orders, Johnny?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't give you a number. I just don't know what they're owed off the top of my head. There's a balance of money owed to them. I can find that out for you, let you know.
I don't wanna see a contractor go without getting paid, being in that business, I'm well aware of that. But to the point that the errors and omission piece, and I wanted to be very clear, and I wanted to make it a point in front of our board to have them understand that it's something that we've been struggling with right along here with the architects. So I would definitely make the motion to, if you wanted, pay the architect, or pay the contractors and set up a meeting with the architects. Or
Okay.
hear back from you as to your findings.
But then we would need to
to, you're making a motion that we're gonna take all 6 of them as we originally.
Well, we
stated.
started individually, so.
Yeah, and then we changed, so we just
Well-
changed back.
Can I ask you if you would like to
I would
amend your
second.
motion to include all 6?
Yes.
Okay,
So moved.
and,
Mr. Tamburello?
but you've made the second,
Oh, fine.
okay?
Since
So
it was
you're
my
okay with
original
that?
motion, that's
Okay.
fine, yes.
So is everybody on the same page here? Okay? Okay. All of those in favor of paying all 6 and having the architect come in and, get the 60 lashes within what meeting?
That's not part of the motion.
All those in favor of paying these 6?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have a budget review status report for,
So the first group is revenues I have budgeted for 2018-19 versus actual, and then a column total. So for revenues, we're actually down 11,527 for the year received versus projected. I'll address that in a second. The next group of numbers should have a title on top of it that says expenditures, which I must have deleted that line, but it's expenditures, which compares the budgeted again to actual. And in that case, you actually were over or underspent $1,184,000. I'll address that in a second. And then finally, you have the assigned fund balance, which comes off of that because it's part of the revenue plus fund balance equals expenditures formula, so you have to subtract that out. So again, that shows the net of a positive 172,000. Specifically in revenues, you may say, why are we below? Well, we had one area that we were actually up considerably, which was our Medicare. I think I mentioned along the way that Medicare does not provide to the district the schedule of payments. We do put the staff report saying that we do get reimbursement for those costs, but when they come is at the government's beck and call. So we're up 144,000 there. In the area of basic formula, which includes a number of categorical aids, including high-cost special ed and transportation, we're down 245,000. About 180,000 of that was transportation. Again, you don't get the aid unless you spend it. We didn't spend it, we don't get the aid for it. Projection from the state a year later, we have that adjustment. Same held true with the special education side, and the same with our BOCES services, we're down 84,000 again. Projections versus actual, you can't get the aid unless you spend the money. So that resulted in an overall receipt of 11,000 less than anticipated. On the expenditure side, the 1.1 million, as you may recall during the budget process, and also from the state controller's report, most of our built-in fund balance, if you will, is on the expenditure side. You have a limited number of codes on the revenue side that you can massage and build those things in because, quite honestly, you won't get the money there. Whereas in the appropriation side, you have 12 pages of different codes that you can put things into, ranging from salary and benefits to retirees coming in or health insurance going up or down. So in that 1.84 million that we were underspent, we had anticipated about $1 million of that to be true. So that all came in where I would say I would have anticipated. So essentially, you're $172,000 off on a $32 million budget in terms of actual to budget. Now, that was 18-19. 19-20, because you went to a zero tax increase and we did some other things in the budget process, the expectation is that we would see a reduction of the unassigned fund balance, which is one of the things that the board wanted to see happen. We also have to talk about a number of reserves and adjustments we can make to that, which we talked about a little bit during the budget process, and you'll have an opportunity in the next couple months to do that. The external auditor will be presenting probably in the first meeting of November, because it looks like the next meeting is pretty full. And we'll be able to address any concerns you have on similar information that will be contained in her report. So I think we're kind of came in where we thought we would for 18-19, and we're heading down where we think we're at for 19-20.
John. I'm not to believe you, when we put $1 million of fund balance in there, you inflated the budget by $1 million then.
We're conservative our estimates on the expenditure side, and that resulted in.
I'm a little simpler.
Basically, we applied $1 million and we covered $1 million.
Okay. So, That's one of the questions that the board had kind of alluded to, which is to get more of a true budget discussion when we talk at budget time. So now I have a clearer understanding because of the tracking that I've done and what we've done in the last 5 years to see how we reappropriate that money and where we get the extra. So I'm on board with that. It's just a little less dramatic when you're talking about, raising taxes when you don't have that million in there as part of the budget. So could we possibly use that as a factor in our presentation this coming year?
Sure.
And when do you fill out the forms for the state to file with them our end of the year, fiscal year?
The end of the fiscal year reports are done August, September, they're all filed now. And that's, the SD3, which is the report of your expenditures. Generally, I should back up. Those are due September 1st. Historically, we've held off because our field work with the audit typically isn't until that first week of September. And that way we're not sending the revision after revision if the auditors find anything to adjust. So typically hold that and then send it in. You do have the ability to revise those if necessary. So that's about a 129-page report and a couple schedules. At the same time, you're also filling out Form A, FT, and FB, which are attendance, building, and transportation information, which helps to generate future aid.
Well, the state has a simplified 3 or 4 pages they spit out as to our district's financials.
So that wouldn't be anything that I'm talking about there.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, pardon the interruption. It's now 7 o'clock. I want to thank all of the parents for coming tonight. We always count it as an honor every time we get to meet with the community as a parent in our efforts to improve the education.
Football equipment, which looks like $1,086. Does that entail like helmets, safety checks?
I don't know that that specifically does, but there is helmet rehabilitation as a regular
So I
expense.
may not be in this equipment amount. It still seems
I have to,
not to be very large. Okay.
I can get back, but I know that annually it's budgeted by Mr. Lauer, so that will make sure it's safe.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got the budget status report that you've done, the revenue status report is all included.
Yeah.
Okay, and the treasurer's report for 19 and 20, we need that was all covered. We've looked at the
Yeah, those are basically the bank
information.
reconciliations, I have no comments on those.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the treasurer's report for June and July.
So moved.
Mr. Hawk, do I have a second? Ms. Powell-Fortner. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We now have we need a motion to approve a 31-day emergency transportation contract. Can we bring that to the floor? Ms. Gagenschatz, in a second. Ms. Powell-Fortner. Is there any questions on that?
Both E1 and 2 are the second emergency contracts. They're both homeless situations, 2 different families. So I did it as emergency contracts to give us an opportunity to see if the family's affected, move back to the district. That hasn't happened yet. We're allowed to by New York State regulations. So now, if the information in the next week shows that they're still out, then I'll have a formal bid for the rest of the school year.
Okay. So we're only looking at E1 right now with this motion. Any other comments? All those in favor? All opposed? We have a second emergency transportation contract bid. Can you bring that to the floor? So moved. Mr. Forrester and Ms. Powell-Fortner, second. Any questions on that one, since it's the same? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have correct tax rolls for parcels. We have one here that I need a motion to approve. Can I get a motion on that, please? So moved. Mr. Hawk, in a second. Ms. Powell Fortner.
I have a question on that one.
Yes.
Do we pay that back to the taxpayer?
What'll happen is the taxpayer, if they haven't already paid,
Right.
they would get a revised bill. If they have paid,
Okay.
we would owe them the difference. And then because it's a change in STAR that came through the assessor's office, we then have to amend our report to the state to get reimbursed for the STAR portion. So we'll be made whole either way.
Okay.
I will point out too that this is one that came particularly from the county. The state this year has a program that's been going on that's created havoc with all schools. We've had probably 15 or 18 here. Randomly, we're getting notice from the state even as late as last week. Change this one, change the STAR, send a new tax bill out, and then you have to revise your STAR report. So all of my peers have held off because October 15th is the final day they can do that to file the STAR. So that'll be a delay for us on that. But rather than sending 15 or 18 revisions, we held off. But this is a little bit different than that.
That makes sense. Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have memorandum of agreement. Can we bring that to the floor?
So,
Ms. Gegenschatz in a second. Ms. Powell Fortner. Can we go over this? Can you
Absolutely.
explain it?
Sure.
Thanks.
So, and you heard this phrase earlier, and you've heard it from me many, many times. One of the goals is to establish multi-tiered systems of support throughout our district. We have a well-established and certainly well-respected MTSS at our elementary, and we have the beginnings of it in our middle school. In order to do something similar but appropriate at the high school level, we needed to create a position for the FTA, for someone to do that work, or at least some of that work. This position is specific to the high school and is similar in nature in terms of the expectations and duties, as well as the rate of pay, is what we already have in the contract for the elementary and the middle school. Okay.
So we already have this at the middle school and elementary, we just gotta add another one for us.
For the high school, correct?
Co-curriculum. Or,
Yes,
okay.
and that's such.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have two issues of personnel that were not part of the consent agenda. One is to approve the appointment of, to approve the probationary appointment of Rebecca Heminger to a 6.5 hour a day, 10-month-a-year position of teacher aide effective September 23rd, 2019 through September 22nd, 2020. Can I have a motion to bring that to the table?
So moved.
Ms. Gegenschatz. Do I have a second? No second. Mr. Forrester, any questions on that?
I'm just going to abstain because that's my sister.
So noted. Did you bring her tonight?
Pardon?
Did you bring her tonight?
I didn't see her in the audience.
You didn't, okay.
Should we go cookies?
All those in